Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The rain was soft against the windows that evening, a kind of hush that used to make our kitchen feel like a safe place. But not tonight. Tonight, it felt like the air had turned sour, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I was stirring the pasta sauce, trying not to overthink the silence behind me. Megan stood by the sink, her back stiff, arms crossed tight. It was subtle, but I knew her well, too well to ignore it. "Megan," I said quietly, walking over and gently touching her arm. "You've barely spoken all day. Are you okay?" She didn't look at me, just muttered, "My stomach hurts." That was it. My stomach hurts. No softness, no glance, just a clipped sentence like I was a stranger who'd stepped out of line. I stepped back slightly, confused. "Okay," I said slowly. "Is it something serious?" "Should we?" I said. "I'm fine." Her voice was sharper now, eyes still fixed on the empty sink. I nodded, giving her space. But after a moment, I tried again. "You've been distant all week. If there's something going on, we need to talk." I'm not trying to push, but she turned around so fast the dish towel slipped from her shoulder. "Eric, not everything is about you. Just drop it." That one landed like a slap. I stared at her. Where is this coming from? "Maybe I'm just tired of pretending everything is fine when it's not," she snapped, her voice rising. "I can't even breathe in this house without being questioned." "Questioned?" I took a step closer, keeping my voice low. "Megan, I asked if you were okay. That's not interrogation. That's what a husband does." "Oh, spare me the husband routine," she scoffed, waving a hand. "You want me to smile, cook dinner, sit across from you, and act like you don't smother me." My jaw clenched. "So now I smother you? Because I care?" She laughed bitterly. "Because you control everything. Even how I feel." That hit something deep. I stood there, my heart thudding, watching this woman, my wife, say things that felt rehearsed, like she'd been waiting to unload this. "Megan," I said softly, "if you need space, take it. But don't rewrite history to justify pushing me away." "I'm not pushing you away," she hissed. "You just don't fit into the version of my life I want right now." There it was. The silence after that was deafening. All I could hear was the rain tapping the glass and the sound of my own breath. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just nodded and stepped back, like I'd finally understood something I'd been blind to. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she asked, but because I couldn't lie beside someone who looked at me like that. We'd been married 7 years. Mortgage halfway paid off. 2 cars in the driveway. Dinners with friends on Saturdays. She worked in marketing downtown. I taught high school biology. We weren't flashy, but we were stable. Or so I thought. But that moment in the kitchen, that cold glance, those cutting words, was the first time I realized something foundational had cracked. And I had no idea how deep that crack would go yet. The sunlight crept in through the blinds like nothing had happened the night before. Birds chirped outside as if our kitchen hadn't just turned into a war zone 12 hours ago. I was already up, standing at the edge of the bed, fully dressed. Megan was still under the covers, her back to me. She hadn't come to the couch. Hadn't even checked if I'd eaten dinner after she stormed off. I rubbed the back of my neck and cleared my throat gently. "Morning," I said, trying to keep it light. "I called Dr. Benson's office. They can see you tomorrow morning at 9. She didn't respond. I waited. "Just want to be sure everything's okay with your stomach. You've been saying it hurts." Thought it was worth checking. Still nothing. Then the comforter shifted and she shot up like a spring, glaring at me. "You what?" I took a small step back, caught off guard. "I made an appointment. Just to be safe." Her eyes narrowed. "Who told you to do that?" "No one told me. You've been saying you don't feel well. You snapped at me yesterday, said you were sick. So I did the normal thing. I called the doctor." She sat up fully now, arms crossed over her chest. "You're unbelievable. You think because I said my stomach hurts, you get to start organizing my entire life?" I blinked. "Megan, it's a checkup. That's all. You don't have to go if you don't want to." "Oh, how generous," she sneered, getting out of bed. "But the real reason you did it? You don't trust me. That's what this is about, right?" "What?" "No, yes." Her voice cracked, eyes wide with something deeper than anger. "You're trying to control me, Eric. You think if I don't act the way you expect, you get to manage me like some kind of project." I held up my hands calm. "You told me you didn't feel good. I was trying to help. That's not control. That's concern." She was pacing now, pulling open drawers, slamming them shut. You know what? You've always been like this. Quiet, nice, reasonable. But underneath that, you're always keeping tabs. Always monitoring me like I'm gonna slip. My voice dropped. Is there something you were trying to hide? She froze mid-step. That did it. Her whole body went still. Then her lips curled into something between disgust and panic. Unbelievable. You think I'm lying now? That I'm making it up? I didn't answer. She picked up a throw pillow and launched it across the room. God, I can't breathe in this house. I'm not stopping you from breathing, I said quietly. I asked if you wanted to see a doctor. She turned on me, pointing a trembling finger at my chest. No, you scheduled it. You didn't ask. That's the difference. I exhaled slowly, trying not to meet fire with fire. You're right. I didn't ask. Maybe I should have. But I didn't think asking was necessary when you said you weren't well. She stormed past me into the bathroom, yanking the door open so hard it rattled. You're trying to paint yourself as the calm one, huh? The good guy. But it's all manipulation. I'm not your patient, Eric. The door slammed. I stood there alone, staring at the wood grain of that door, wondering how it had come to this. Just days ago, we were watching that ridiculous cooking show on the couch. Megan curled up beside me, her laughter making me forget every stress from work. Now she was accusing me of trying to control her for booking a doctor's appointment. I glanced over at the framed photo on our dresser. Us in Asheville last fall, hiking, her cheeks flushed from the wind, her smile so real it practically glowed. I used to know her like I knew my own hands. But this wasn't her. Or maybe it was, and I was just now seeing it. A few minutes later, she stormed out of the bathroom, bag slung over her shoulder, face still damp from washing off whatever mask she was wearing. I'll be back later, she snapped, brushing past me. Where are you? She turned in the hallway, eyes glassy. I'm not reporting my every move to you, Eric. And with that, she left. I stayed in the bedroom a while, listening to the silence settle around me like dust. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was worried, confused. And beneath that confusion, something colder had started to form. Doubt. Not just about the argument, but about what had really changed in her. Or maybe what she'd been hiding all along. 3 days passed. Megan didn't reschedule the doctor's visit, and I didn't bring it up again. By Friday, we were both pretending like nothing had happened. Emily and Brian, our closest couple friends, were hosting a small get-together in their backyard. Just grilled burgers, fire pit, laughter, drinks. A break from tension, or so I thought. Megan dressed carefully. That blue sundress I hadn't seen in months, hair loose over her shoulders, a light gloss on her lips. She looked beautiful. Not for me, but beautiful. We pulled into their driveway around 6. Emily hugged us both. Brian clapped me on the back like always. It felt routine, familiar. But the moment we stepped into the backyard, something in Megan shifted. I saw it in the way she smiled. Wider than usual, just a little too bright. Eric, grab a drink, she said, brushing past me toward the table where Brian stood laughing with Emily. I poured myself a soda, made small talk with Emily, but I was watching Megan. She stood beside Brian, leaning slightly in, laughing too quickly at whatever joke he'd made. Her hand brushed his arm. Not obviously, not long, but long enough that it didn't look like an accident. I joined them, sliding my arm gently around her shoulder. She flinched. Not dramatically, but her posture stiffened, just for a second, before she took a small step forward, letting my arm fall away. Brian didn't react, but his gaze flicked to Megan, then to me. Megan turned to Emily. Do you still have that Chardonnay from last weekend? Emily nodded, already walking to the kitchen. And there we were, just the 3 of us now. I looked at Brian. Busy week. Yeah, he said, not meeting my eyes. Always is. Megan stepped closer to him. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough. The rest of the night blurred into wine, smoke from the fire pit, and background laughter. But every time I looked over, Megan wasn't near me. She was always near Brian. I watched her laugh at his stories, lean just a bit when he talked, touch her hair like she used to with me in the early days. Once, as Emily handed out drinks, I caught Megan looking at Brian. Not just looking. Watching. A gaze that lingered half a second too long. He looked back, quickly, then away. Like they were both pretending not to know what the other was thinking. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and passed Megan her drink, like I hadn't noticed a thing. But I had. Every touch, every flinch, every glance. I felt the entire night like I was watching a scene written without me. And when we finally got back in the car, Megan hummed softly to herself, scrolling on her phone. Not once did she look at me. And still, I said nothing. But inside, something was shifting, quietly, permanently. It was a Tuesday when I found Carl. Old friend of a friend. The kind of guy who blended into the background and asked questions without ever sounding like he was asking. Former cop, now a quiet man with a quiet office above a laundromat near downtown Raleigh. Nameplate crooked. Coffee burnt. Carpet older than I was. But he got things done. Tell me exactly what you're looking for, he said, tapping a worn notepad. I hesitated. I think my wife's hiding something, I said finally. And it's not just an affair. Carl didn't flinch. You got a name? Brian, I said. Brian Harper. He's married. He's close to us. Carl nodded slowly, scribbling. No problem. I'll keep it clean. You'll get photos, timestamps, audio if I can. Nothing illegal, nothing messy. Just the truth. The truth. That was all I wanted. A week later, I found myself back in that musty little office. Carl didn't greet me with small talk. Just gestured toward a chair and turned a laptop screen toward me. Listen to this, he said. The recording crackled slightly before settling. Wind. Car engines. Then, Megan's voice. I'm late. Like, really late. I bought 3 tests, Brian. All positive. I went still. Brian's voice came next, lower, tense. Are you sure they're accurate? I'm standing in a hospital parking lot with a sonogram in my purse, she said, voice shaking. Yeah, I'm sure. Brian muttered a curse under his breath. Then silence. Just ambient sound. Cars passing, someone coughing in the distance. Megan again. I don't know what to do. Brian, does Eric? No, she cut in. And he's not going to. Not yet. Carl paused the audio there. I stared at the screen. The progress bar was barely halfway through, but I'd heard more than enough. I couldn't speak at first. My jaw was tight, fists clenched on my knees. Carl waited, respectful. Then he leaned forward slightly. There's more. She tells him she's going to list you as the father. That it's easier that way, for insurance, hospital records, her reputation. I closed my eyes. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was dealing with a plan. A choice. She'd made a decision to deceive me, not in the heat of a moment, but in cold logic. She listed me? I asked, voice hoarse. Carl nodded. Said it straight to him. Eric's name goes on the records. It's clean. He won't ask questions if I handle it right. I pressed a hand to my mouth, biting back something between a laugh and a groan. This wasn't just an affair. It was construction. She was building a lie, brick by brick. Carl slid a folder across the desk. Inside, still photos. Megan and Brian, leaning on a car in the hospital parking lot, her hand resting on her stomach. His face pale, lips tight. You okay? Carl asked. I nodded slowly. Yeah. And I was. Because now, for the first time in weeks, I had clarity. The story was no longer half-written. And I knew exactly how this chapter had to end. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and quiet lies. I stepped through the sliding doors just after 9, hands steady in my pockets, heartbeat slow and controlled. No rage. No shaking. Just purpose. At the front desk, a young nurse looked up with a polite smile. How can I help you? I'm here about my wife, I said calmly. Megan Harper. She had some tests done recently. The nurse typed for a moment. Are you listed as immediate family? I'm her husband, Eric Harper. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I'll need to confirm your identity. I slid my license across the counter. She studied it, glanced back at the screen, then back at me. You're listed as the father, she said quietly. There it was. Printed reality. Cold. Flat. Official. Yes, I replied. That's correct. She nodded, still uncertain. One moment. She disappeared down the hall. I stood there watching a janitor push a mop past me like nothing in the world had shifted. A few minutes later, she returned holding a thin folder. This is all I can release under your name, she said. Thank you, I said. A doctor stepped in beside her, scanning the chart. A man in his late 40s, calm eyes, practiced warmth. Mr. Harper, he said with a soft smile, extending a hand. Congratulations. I took his hand. Thank you, I replied. The words sounded strange in my own mouth. She's early, he continued. But everything looks stable so far. We'll schedule the next scan soon. Of course, I said evenly. He nodded again. Try to be there for her. These early weeks can be overwhelming. I will, I said. Because technically, that was still true. The nurse turned the folder toward me. You can review this here, if you'd like. I opened it slowly. Printed forms. Intake notes. Emergency contact. And right there, in black ink, Father, Eric Harper. Not Brian. Me. My name. My life. My future, rewritten without my consent. I closed the folder carefully, as if it might bite. I appreciate your help, I said to the nurse. She smiled, relieved. Of course. The doctor gave one last nod. Take care of your family. I intend to, I answered. Then I turned and walked down the hallway. Each step echoed too loudly, like the building itself was listening. I didn't feel anger in that moment. I felt precision. A trap had been built, and I had just stepped over it without getting caught. That evening, our bedroom looked like something out of a magazine ad. Soft light, warm shadows, lavender-scented candles flickering on the dresser. Megan stood near the bed, wearing silk the color of red wine. I hadn't seen that gown in years. She glanced at me with a soft smile. Hey. I stood in the doorway, unbuttoning my cuffs. Hey. She crossed to the nightstand, adjusting the candle like it mattered. You were quiet at dinner. I had a long day. She paused, nodding like she accepted that. I thought maybe we could just be us tonight. Her voice was low, sweet, intentional. She stepped closer, and I caught a trace of that perfume she only wore on anniversaries. The one that used to make me stop mid-sentence when she passed by. You look nice, I said, carefully neutral. Her fingers touched my chest, trailing up toward my collar. I was hoping you'd say that. I met her eyes. They were soft, calculated. She leaned in, lips grazing my jaw. It's been a while. I stepped back slightly, just enough to put air between us. I'm tired, I said, quiet but clear. Her face didn't change at first. Then she blinked, lips parting slightly, as if I'd just said something in a language she didn't understand. Oh, I had a lot on my mind. Work, I nodded. Among other things. She wrapped her arms around herself, that silk gown shifting with her. You've been distant lately. You think so? She didn't answer. I walked over to the dresser, took off my watch, set it down with a soft click. Her reflection in the mirror was frozen, uncertain. She tried again, her voice low and rehearsed. I miss us, Eric. Don't you? I turned, leaned against the dresser. You miss the version of me that didn't ask questions. She gave a short laugh. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't reply. She moved to sit on the edge of the bed, the mattress creaking slightly under her. I'm trying here, she said. I'm lighting candles. I'm showing up. What else do you want from me? I looked at her for a long moment. What did I want? Honesty? That was too far gone. Answers? I already had them. Right now, all I wanted was for her to sit in the discomfort she'd built, instead of hiding behind perfume and mood lighting. You don't need to try, I said. Not tonight. Her shoulders slumped. So you're rejecting me now? I'm not rejecting you, I said gently. I'm just tired. She looked away, and there it was, the first real crack in her armor. Not rage, not manipulation, just uncertainty. The same woman who had been so sure of herself, who'd worn betrayal like a second skin, was now rattled by one simple word. No. She rose from the bed slowly. I thought maybe we could reset. Go back to how things were. I tilted my head. When exactly do you think things changed? She stared at me, then looked down at the candle beside her, as if it might answer for her. I turned toward the bathroom. Good night, Megan. As I stepped out of the room, I didn't look back. And behind me, the candlelight flickered against the silence she'd lit herself. The clock on my nightstand read 4:58 a.m. when I felt her body press against mine. I hadn't slept. Not a minute. Megan's hand brushed lightly across my chest, and then her lips, soft and deliberate, found my neck. She didn't say anything at first, just moved slowly, breathing warm against my skin, like she could slide back into the version of herself that existed before the cracks began showing. Then came the whisper. I miss you. It landed with the weight of a lie whispered in a church. I didn't flinch. I didn't respond. She kissed my shoulder. I was thinking, maybe we could start over. Just the two of us. No pressure. No tension. Just us again. I sat up without a word. Swung my legs off the bed. Pulled a hoodie over my head. Eric, she said softly. Where are you going? I didn't answer. I left the room, walked down the hall, and into the kitchen where the world still smelled like silence and cold tile. The fridge light spilled out as I opened the door. Eggs, butter, bread, the usual. I moved slowly, methodically, like someone who'd done this 1,000 times, because I had. Only now, everything had changed. Behind me, I heard her feet touch the floor. A moment later, the rustle of fabric. Then the soft patter of her steps. I cracked the eggs into the skillet and let them sizzle, the hiss cutting through the tension like a blade. Megan's voice followed, coated in sugar and strain. You're just walking away? I'm making breakfast, I said without turning. For who? She asked, crossing her arms at the doorway. Because it sure doesn't feel like you're still here with me. I flipped the eggs carefully. You hungry? She blinked. Are you serious right now? I finally turned to look at her. Hair messy from sleep. That silk robe again, wrinkled now. Her lips still glossed from whatever fantasy she was trying to recreate. I held her gaze. Calm. Steady. You don't want eggs? Eric, stop it, she snapped, stepping into the kitchen. You're doing that thing where you act like nothing matters. Like I didn't just try to talk to you, open up to you. You kissed my neck, I said flatly. Her voice rose. I'm trying to reconnect. No, Megan, I replied evenly. You're trying to erase something. That's not the same thing. She bit her lip, shaking her head. Why are you acting like I'm the enemy? I'm not acting. I just stopped pretending you're not. That one cut deep. I saw it in her eyes. She leaned against the counter, shoulders tight. So this is it now? You don't talk to me? You make eggs and give riddles? I placed the eggs on a plate, turned off the stove. Some things, I said, sliding the plate toward her, don't need words anymore. That doesn't mean anything, she snapped. It does to me. She stared at me, arms still crossed, like she was trying to keep herself from unraveling. You think you know everything, she said. You think you figured me out. I met her eyes again. I think I've stopped trying to convince myself that I don't already know. Her mouth opened, then closed. Nothing came out. I grabbed a second plate, made myself eggs without saying another word. Her breathing grew shallow. I didn't want things to be like this, she whispered. I nodded. Neither did I. You don't even ask me what I'm feeling. You don't want to be asked, I said, my voice low. You want to be forgiven without having to explain. A beat of silence. She stepped forward, gently touched my arm. Eric, I'm scared. I'm not saying everything right now because I don't know how. I didn't move. You had time. I still do, she whispered. But I didn't respond. The toast popped. I grabbed it, buttered both slices, placed one next to her plate and the other on mine. She didn't sit. She just stood there, watching, unsteady. Eat something, I said quietly. She stared at the plate, then at me. You're really going to do this? Just sit here and act like none of this is real? I looked at her, and for the first time in days, I smiled. Not a kind smile, a knowing one. I'm acting like it's very real. She stepped back. Her eyes blinked fast. You're not supposed to be the one who pulls away. You'd be surprised, I murmured. Then I sat down and took the first bite. She didn't move, didn't touch the food, just stood there, robe hanging off one shoulder, the flicker of morning light hitting her eyes like the truth she hadn't planned for. Her plan wasn't falling apart. It already had. And now, all that was left was the echo of the kitchen and the quiet click of my fork against porcelain. Before we move on, tap like if this is landing for you. By noon, the sky had turned overcast, gray light hanging over Raleigh like a pause before something permanent. I parked in front of the law office, turned off the engine, and sat there for a moment, fingers tapping the steering wheel. I wasn't here to burn bridges. I was here to build the exit. The building was brick and glass, quiet, serious. Inside, the walls were lined with books I doubted anyone touched unless they had to. The secretary behind the desk greeted me with a tired smile. You're Mr. Harper? Yes. Eric. Attorney Hayes will see you now. I followed her down a narrow hallway to a corner office. Glass panels, old wooden desk, 2 chairs across from it. Mitchell Hayes stood up when I entered. Early 50s, dark suit, silver hair, eyes that looked like they'd seen every kind of marriage unravel. He shook my hand. Firm grip. No warmth. Just business. You've got something for me? He asked, gesturing for me to sit. I pulled the folder from my coat and placed it on the desk. Inside, printouts of Carl's report, transcripts of the recording, timestamps, photos of Megan and Brian in the hospital parking lot, a copy of the hospital paperwork showing my name listed as the father, and a flash drive neatly labeled in black ink, proof. Mitchell opened the folder and began flipping through. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. Just scanned each page, one after the next, with the slow, steady pace of a man used to sorting through the ashes. I sat in silence. The only sound was the faint hum of a vent overhead and the soft rasp of paper sliding over paper. When he reached the last page, he leaned back in his chair, resting one hand on the file. "This," he said finally, "is airtight." I nodded once. "I'm not surprised. You'll win everything," he continued. "Custody, assets, public sympathy if that matters to you. She can try to fight, but it won't go far. Not with a fake paternity filing and evidence of an ongoing affair. I'm not interested in dragging her through the mud," I said quietly. "I just want to be done clean." Mitchell tilted his head. "You understand she tried to lock you into legal fatherhood of a child that isn't yours. I understand. She could have stayed quiet. Waited. Collected child support for 18 years. I nodded again. "That's why I'm here now. Before the damage gets deeper." Mitchell tapped the folder. "Smart man. You came early." "I came right after I stopped lying to myself." He leaned forward, sliding the file back toward himself like it was already part of a case in motion. "I'll start paperwork today. This will be fast. Surgical." "I'd prefer quiet over fast," I said. Mitchell gave a dry smile. "Quiet is easy when you're holding the truth." I stood, shook his hand again. "Thank you," I said. "No need," he replied. "She's the one who gave you the case. You're just carrying it forward." Outside, the clouds hadn't moved. But somehow, the air felt lighter. I didn't feel powerful. I felt steady. And for the first time in weeks, I knew exactly where I stood. Emily's house always had this warm, casual glow, like a place where bad things didn't happen. String lights over the fence, the soft thump of music in the background, clinking glasses, and the smell of grilled food drifting through the backyard. You'd think peace could live here. But tonight was going to be something else entirely. Megan had dressed up, too much for a backyard hangout. Pale pink dress, gold necklace, hair curled in waves like the night was bigger than she wanted to admit. Her eyes sparkled with a kind of restless energy, like someone about to pull off a magic trick in front of a blindfolded crowd. Emily greeted us like always. Warm hugs, a quick, "There's drinks by the cooler, burgers on the way." Megan drifted into conversation quickly, her smile wide, her voice brighter than it had been in weeks. She laughed a little too hard at Brian's joke. His wife, Emily, didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she was just trying not to. I stood near the edge of the group, nursing a soda, letting the party move around me like I was a shadow. Then I saw it. Megan clinked her glass gently, drawing everyone's attention. "I just want to say something real quick," she said, her voice sweet and clear. "I know the last few months have been a little quiet on our end, but I think it's time to share the good news." I felt the twist in my gut. She looked right at me. "Eric and I," her voice trembled, just a touch, perfectly rehearsed, "are having a baby." There was a beat of silence. Then, cheers erupted. Laughter. Clapping. Glasses raised. Someone shouted, "Finally." Someone else added, "Congrats, man." Emily clapped her hands over her mouth, eyes wide. "Oh my God, Megan. That's amazing." And Brian, he just stood there, frozen, color draining from his face like someone had opened a trapdoor beneath him. Megan turned to me, beaming. "Tell them, babe." I lifted my glass slowly, looked at every person around the fire pit. Then I smiled. "Actually," I said, voice calm, clear and cold as winter air, "you should probably toast Brian instead." The silence was immediate. No one laughed. No one moved. Brian blinked. Once. Twice. Then looked down at the beer in his hand like it might dissolve. Emily looked between us, confused. "Wait, what?" I turned to her, still holding my glass steady. "Megan is pregnant. That part is true." Megan's smile faltered. "But it's not mine." Her voice came out in a rush, breathless. "Eric, what are you talking about?" I didn't even look at her. I kept my eyes on Brian. "You want to say anything? Or should I keep going?" Emily turned to her husband. "Brian?" Brian opened his mouth, closed it. His skin was pale, almost green under the porch lights. Megan stepped forward quickly. "He's lying. I don't know what he's talking about. He's confused. He's upset." I held up the flash drive from my coat pocket. "Audio recording. You two, in the hospital parking lot. Your voice. Your words." Brian finally spoke, his voice cracked and low. Megan. Emily's eyes snapped to him. What did you do? Megan reached for me, trying to grab the flash drive. Eric, stop it. Please. We can fix this. You don't have to do this here. This, I said softly, is exactly where it needs to happen. I looked around the circle, friends we'd known for years, some since our wedding. All of them now watching with wide eyes, holding their drinks like they might spill truth if they moved too fast. Congratulations, Brian, I added, finishing the toast. Hope you're ready for diaper duty. Brian stepped back like he'd been hit. Emily covered her mouth again. Only this time it wasn't awe. It was nausea. Megan's voice cracked. It was a mistake, Eric. I was going to tell you. I was scared. You weren't scared, I said. You were strategic. And then I turned, walked across the yard, past the string lights, the confused stares, the tight air no one dared to breathe. I didn't need to see how it ended, because I already knew. Let her explain this one. Let Brian stammer through it. Let the silence rip them open like they planned to do to me. For once, I didn't clean up the mess. I just walked away from it. The courtroom smelled like paper and polished wood. Not justice, just bureaucracy in motion. Megan sat across the aisle, her hair tied in a neat bun, lips pressed tight. She wore the kind of gray suit that screamed humility. Her lawyer, a polished man in an expensive tie, leaned in and whispered like they were crafting the perfect story. My attorney, Mitchell Hayes, sat beside me, silent, confident. He didn't need to build a narrative. He had the truth in a folder. The judge called us forward. Megan's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, my client is not contesting the paternity evidence. She acknowledges the mistake, but asks that the court consider the emotional context. She was living in isolation, emotionally abandoned in a marriage where communication had long broken down. There was no malice, only confusion and fear. I didn't move. The judge nodded slowly, jotting something on the pad in front of him. And yet she falsified medical records. That's not fear. That's fraud. Megan's lawyer shifted. It wasn't premeditated, Your Honor. Mitchell stood. We have documentation, audio recordings, and a timeline that suggests otherwise. She admitted her plan to the biological father, weeks before Mr. Harper knew anything. That's not a slip. That's a scheme. The judge turned to Megan. Mrs. Harper, do you dispute what's been presented? She swallowed hard. No, Your Honor. Silence. Then came the ruling. The court finds that Mr. Harper is not the legal father of the unborn child. Parental rights are removed. Mr. Harper will not be held responsible for any financial obligation related to the child. I felt my chest rise slightly. The court awards Mrs. Harper the car currently in her name. All other jointly held property will be retained by Mr. Harper. Legal separation is granted effective immediately. And finally, Mr. Brian Harper will be listed as the legal father and is to assume all parental responsibilities, including child support, upon birth. I glanced across the aisle. Brian, sitting behind Megan, didn't even look up, just stared at the table. Megan's jaw was trembling, but I felt still, like the air had stopped pressing on my ribs. As we stood to leave, Mitchell touched my shoulder lightly. You got everything you came for. No, I said. I got something better. What's that? Closure. And then I walked out of the courtroom. Free. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I heard the knock. Not rushed. Not uncertain. Just steady. I opened the door, and there stood Emily. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Eyes red, like she hadn't slept. But her shoulders were straight. Her chin lifted. She gave a small smile. Hey. Hey. I replied, stepping aside. Want to come in? She shook her head. No. I don't need to sit. I just needed to ask you something. I leaned against the doorframe, the autumn breeze curling in behind her. She looked up at me, and her voice was barely more than a whisper. How did you not break? I let the silence sit for a moment. Let it breathe. Then I answered simply. I did. Quietly. When no one was looking. Her eyes shimmered, but no tears fell. I added, some betrayals hit like earthquakes. Emily nodded, her voice steadier now. Yeah. But you rebuild, I said. And if you do it right, the ground ends up stronger than before. She gave a shaky laugh. Brian moved out yesterday. I wasn't surprised. I told him I couldn't live with someone who could lie so easily to people who trusted him most. I nodded. That's something I respect. She looked at me a moment longer, then stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't anything more than what two people who survived a shared wreckage could offer each other. When she pulled back, she smiled again, real this time. I'm glad you're okay. I am now. Me too. And then she turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared into the morning. I stood there for a moment, watching the street, the leaves, the quiet. Then I closed the door behind me and stepped back into a life that was mine again. Whole, quiet, and finally real. And that was the end of my story. Emily chose to walk away from someone she once promised forever to, all because he chose silence when the truth mattered most. Tell me honestly, did she do the right thing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story hit you somewhere real, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got more to tell.